we learn how to become creative through prompting. Yes, there are averages of averages, but I would argue that art has been like that for centuries as well. You inspire yourself, then you remix it, you combine things together, and then you create a new artistic language. The same is happening with AI.
Welcome to Prompted, a podcast about AI, people, and the creative spark. I'm Cameron Adams, co-founder and chief product officer of Canva. Today, we're talking about the future of building software, which is increasingly a world where you don't have to write every line of code. You can describe what you want and AI builds it with you. By now, most of us have heard the term for this. It's vibe coding. It's made waves because after years of coding being a skill that required extensive training and education, we are entering a world where anyone can code an app or a website, regardless of their skill level. Sounds a bit like what Canva did for design. One of the companies leading this shift is Replit. Joining me today is Michele Catasta, president and head of AI at Replit. Michele architected and led the launch of Replit Agent, an AI system that can build and deploy entire apps from simple natural language prompts. This helps drive more than 100x revenue growth for the company. But before Replit, Michele led applied research at Google X and Google Labs, focusing on large language models. Michele, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Cameron. Thanks for inviting me.
It is so good to have you here and go deep on vibe coding. But before we get into that, I would love to learn a little bit more about you. And the way that we do that is through the prompt. To start with, we want you to draw something from your childhood that inspired you or shaped your life in some way, and you need to tell us the story about it while you're drawing. Do you think you can multitask?
I'll do my best. You're testing my drawing skills, which, as you will soon find out, are not amazing. But I think I'm going to pick a memory when I was 5-6 years old. I got really fixated with a movie that I think everyone knows. It's called Top Gun. And I was a little kid living in Italy, dreaming of how the world looked like. And of course, I was excited about Top Gun, both because it was showing me California, where I ended up living in the last 10 years of my life, as well as because it kind of shows this culture like high performance and being very passionate about your job. And it's something that I think I carried over in my leadership style. So let me see if I can draw something.
I'm hoping that you're drawing a beach volleyball scene, because that's the main thing I remember at Top Gun.
Either that, or I'm going to try to do something simpler, because if you see me drawing that, it wouldn't be a good work. But let's go with some aviator shades. What do you think? Everyone was wearing those very cool sunglasses on those movies. So
very Top Gun iconic.
Exactly. It's very much my style as well. I had a lot of time to dream about how the world will look like in the future. Shall I show it on the screen?
Yeah, show it to us.
It's like a 15 seconds work, so nothing good. Let's do it. Aviator shades on the movie. This is me watching. Let's go with
That's everything. We got little Michele watching Top Gun aviator glasses on the TV.
There you go.
We're going to send that little sketch over to our designer in residence, Nella, and she's going to take your sketch, use some of her skills, and collaborate with AI to create something amazing out of it. We don't know what, but if you want to see it, stay tuned to the end of the podcast and we will reveal it for you. All right. While Nella's turning your work into an entirely new art form, I would love to go deep on AI with you. Are you ready for some questions?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Brilliant. So you spent several years at Stanford researching AI and the way that it was applied to code. What did you learn there that really shaped the work that you are doing today?
I would say this is back in late 2016, basically when Transformers were about to come out. I was already quite curious about the research space. I literally bought my ticket to live in Silicon Valley by being an open source programmer since I was a teenager. So amazing. Coding has always been my passion in life. I've done a PhD in deep learning. I reached a point, after the end of my PhD where I realized, what do I really want to do? What is my big life mission? And I kind of married my two passions together. And I quickly realized that it would have happened one day, that this scenario that we're living today would have happened. I just didn't know the timeline. So I really wanted to go deep. I became part of that research community. I was one of the first people in the world to apply transformers to source code, just to in reality, perhaps lived 3, 4 very frustrating years of my professional career, in the sense that I knew that I had a glimpse of the future. I knew that things would have become powerful enough, but I was becoming restless. I really wanted to see that in action. And I think what happened is I was at the right place at the right time in my life. I always think that luck plays a big role, regardless of how hard you work. So I was part of that early community. We started to see some very early results of models being able to predict, say, variable names, method names, but nothing compared to what we're experiencing today. And then I think I would say 3, 4 years later, that's when the first GPT models came out. The entire community realized that by scaling models, we would have quickly gotten where we are today in terms of creating agents. So that's the moment where I decided it was about time for me to wrap up my research career and then go back into being an operator. And that's where I spent years at Google. That's where I spent years at Replit. And I think it's been 10 years right now and counting. And I expect this to be possibly the last job of my life because there is quite a lot of additional work to be done from here.
Oh, I thought that was because you put yourself out of work.
It's probably going to happen. I say the same, to everyone at Rapid. This is going to be our last job, but I don't think it's going to be another 12 months. I think there is a lot of product work that can be done around it, and your case is exemplary about that.
It seems like you have oscillated between going deep on research and then kind of exercising your entrepreneurial spirit. Do you think you need to switch between those two things, or they're distinct periods in your life?
I tried always to sort of timeshare them, but definitely I had periods of my life where I was just wearing the researcher hat and went as deep as possible. That is paying off dividends today. So a lot of the technical choices I make and the way in which I architect products, I still have the researcher attitude when we work. And especially when I'm creating an AI product, you need to be able to accept the fact that some of the exploratory work you will be doing will fail. And rather than getting depressed about it and losing energy, you should actually feel empowered that you probably ruled out one of the bad options. You're going to learn from the exploratory work, go back on your feet, go to the whiteboard and come up with the next solution. That's how we've been iterating on Replit Agent since we launched a year and a half ago.
So Replit's nearly a decade old now, but the idea of vibe coding is probably only a year or two old. What do you think was the pivotal change that actually made vibe coding a thing?
There was an inflection point in LLM capabilities that happened somewhere around mid 2024. I've been waiting for the day for many, many years. I recall the first version of an agent that I built, for myself, and that I demoed to the CEO of Replit, Amjad, was back in 2021. That's when the first research papers came out on how to do a very basic agentic loop. So the moment that research was happening within Google, I started to build them myself. It was the most exciting thing I've ever done, honestly. But the gap between seeing something barely working into something that is ready to be shipped, at least to early adopters, was fairly long. So it took me 3 years to go from that early prototype into shipping the first version of Replit Agent. And I think every major release we make is a major leap. We're not. I still say internally that we're iterating, but every time it almost feels like a pivot. That's how big it gets.
I'm sure that inside Google, there was a ton of momentum around AI and coding and how the two could merge together. What made you decide to actually move to Replit from a company that seems to have amazing resources for developing AI?
There is beauty in being in a very small and nimble place that wants to make a very clear entire company bet behind the product. Google has a lot of competing forces. They have a huge market when it comes to ads, and a lot of the other projects feels like they will never be a top priority. They're important. They definitely want to see also the impact within their own workforce. So whatever I was building at Google, the main outcome was to make their own developers more productive. The mission that I really resonate with is to bring this technology in the hands of everyone. And again, I think is really connected to the Top Gun story that I told you before, and the fact that I spent many years in Italy and then I started to work abroad. I bought that ticket, with my own skills, and I want to make sure that everyone in the world can do exactly the same in the future.
I think I had exactly the same reason for leaving Google way back when we started Canva. So I'm feeling a great kinship here, Michele.
Yeah, I can feel that. Likewise.
So vibe coding, Replit, been out for a couple of years now. What's the most exciting thing that you have seen come out of it?
I'm sure I have some level of recency bias because we launched a Replit Agent for literally 6 days ago.
Okay.
But but I'm very excited about this last launch because we went from being a product mostly focused on creating applications and software of any kind into a very powerful general agent that allows you to 0 to 1 an entire business. So the reason why I say that is because you land on Replit, you can write a very extensive prompt, and you can literally ask to create the application you have in mind. You can create a slide deck you will be sharing to your investors. You can do deep research on the web, create a memo for your first hires because you want to explain them exactly what is the market opportunity. You can create automation that send emails to the initial customers. This is something that I want people to be aware more and more. It's really out there, it's happening. So I feel many of us had the intent of creating their own business in life, but we always felt, we're kind of like one trick ponies. That's almost how I describe myself oftentimes. I think I spike on many things in terms of tech, but as you've seen from my drawing, I would have never made a living, painting or doing anything artistic. That equation is changing right now as we speak. Like you can create animation marketing videos on Rabbit. I've done them myself. Even a year ago, I would have never been able to do anything remotely as good as that. And you with Canva embrace exactly the same philosophy. It's like empowering people that didn't spend 10,000 hours to master a certain skill. They become good enough still to create things that they want to show to the world. So that is the real vibe coding revolution that I want to see everywhere in the world, not just creating a piece of software.
Vibe coding is now a pretty competitive area. I think there's maybe dozens, maybe hundreds of startups that have sprung up
Easily,
in this
yeah.
space over the last couple of years. So what makes Replit unique and how are you staying ahead of all that competition?
Well, first of all, the fact that we are literally the first web coding product on the market in September 2024 helped us to be always, the top of the game, always listening to what our users want. We got a lot of feedback, both positive and negative, like any early product. But I think our users really helped us to shape what Replit is today. And the other aspect is the fact that I come from a research background, and I enjoy doing that a lot, in my life, means that I tend to be more open to working on innovation, in always finding, on what is the next way to create magic for our users. I don't love to work exclusively like in incremental improvements. Every now and then, we go back to the whiteboard and we decide what is the next big architecture, what is the next big product bundle that we're going to be giving to our users. So if you look at our timeline, literally every 6 months we go through a major release. I think that gives us enough breathing space to rethink some of the assumptions we had with the previous version. And in the window of time, of course, we keep improving our agent on a daily basis. But like every now and then, given how fast AI is improving and models are getting better, you have to question everything that you have done. And also don't get emotionally attached to anything you built. We throw away a lot of code. I think it's both the curse and the blessing of working with AI. You have to move fast because things get deprecated really quickly.
You kind of touched on it a little bit, but software development is totally changing inside Replit as well. What does that look like now? Is 100% of the code agent written, or are product teams still doing 50% of it and deploying review on the other 50%? What does it look like?
I would say maybe 90% of the time the engineers are spending in front of their computers. They are reviewing code, testing, verifying. The rest is meetings, understanding system design, making architectural choices. But probably, definitely 90 plus percent of the code we put in our repositories today has been initially generated by AI models. It could be models doing a single shot, simple edit on a file. It could be agents that are running in local. We also have something very advanced that we build internally that literally connects to all our systems, and it's an agent that runs autonomously, and it reuses the same foundational work we've done on Rapid, but it works on our own internal code base. More than half of the code is being built as we speak by that very autonomous agent, where our engineers basically point them to the systems, explain what is the bugs or the issues that are going through, and it just generates PRs and makes progress. So the rate at which we're creating code is something that I've never seen before. The bottleneck though is still humans. So That's why we keep hiring a lot of engineers, because if you want to maintain the level of productivity, the taste of what should become part of your code base and part of your product is still very much human driven. So I think we're getting more in charge of the creative process than we were before, because you don't have to spend all the time about what's tedious about coding. You can actually spend time on what is creative, what is intellectually stimulating for a developer.
That's a brilliant future. Sounds like you're using Replit to build Replit, or Replit is building Replit itself.
Replit is building itself really as we speak. The part that excites me the most with this release is our designers have been using predominantly Replit to design the next version of Replit. So that's why I don't like to call it vibe coding anymore. I think it's too limiting as a term. It's not just coding. You're literally vibe creating everything. And I think especially with Agent 4, I love to call it it's a creative platform. As long as the artifact you create is software, then Replit helps you to make that happen.
I love that in this software development space, it's increasingly becoming recursive, where the tools are building the tools and people are helping the tools build the tools.
Exactly. And also roles are blurring quite a lot. Like when I go around, I see designers pushing code and I see PMs, creating launches and creating PRs. It's as long as you have agency and good taste and you know how to do teamwork, everyone is empowered to get a lot of stuff done.
I presume that under the hood, you're using one of the foundational models, whether it's, OpenAI or Anthropic. How do you stay ahead of them? Because they're already developing their own software development platforms. You got Codex, you got Claude Code. And I presume you're also at the behest of them when they're rolling out changes to how the LLM produces code or is able to increase its context window or all the improvements that they do to their systems. How do you grapple with that and staying ahead of them or creating a product that stays ahead of them?
Look, if you asked me the same question, say 2 years ago, I would have told you it's not easy to navigate this environment, mostly because none of those companies knew how to collaborate well with startups, and other entities. Things have become much better, like in the last, year or so, where it's in their own interest to give visibility on their roadmap to an extent, to give early access to models. So we know in advance where the pack is headed. Maybe we don't know 3 years ahead. That is more my job at the company to, tell people, I think that's where we're going. That's why we should be building the next version of the agent in that way. But we have a certain amount of visibility on what's going to happen in the next, say, 6 weeks from today. And given how short are the roadmaps that we were talking about before, that is usually more than enough for us to have enough lead time to then ship a new version or ship improvements based on where the models are going. Definitely, there will always be competition in this space because I believe it's one of the most exciting opportunities that tech has ever created. So everyone is going to try, to win their own space. What I love about the direction that we took as a company, and our company mission, which is empowering the next billion software creators, we don't compete in the space of trying to get the mind share of the same 50 million developers in the world. My personal mission is to make Replit as widespread and well known as Excel. Maybe it's not the sexiest piece of software that we ever talk about, but Excel is used by, I think, 1.5 billion people in the world. Like literally every knowledge worker knows how to use Excel. There is no reason why they shouldn't be able to use Replit. I would argue Replit is much easier than using Excel. So that is my North Star. It's going to take a while, but we're going to get there.
That is a great North Star to have. So I think everyone loves to hear how people are personally using AI themselves. How do you use AI day to day? Is it the first thing you talk to when you wake up? Is it the primary thing that you're working with? What does it look like in Michele's day?
It has become almost like my sidekick. It's always there in one way or another. I have several products that I've become a daily active users of. Mostly also because my role is such that every day I split my time between thinking of AI and thinking of engineering and tech, which is what I've been done my entire professional career. But there are also other aspects of my role where I need to teach how to scale up a company and, how to grow our talent and HR team, how to work with support. So I need to learn on the spot. And before I would have read a ton of books, and I still make a lot of calls to my colleagues. But nothing beats having ChatGPT and Claude on your fingertips. Like always trying to get answers as soon as you can. a lot of help with my emails, as you can imagine. The bigger Replit becomes, the more untamable my inbox is becoming. And last but not least, I have a very long list of small tools that I built on Replit to make my life easier. Like every time I realize that I have some tedious workflows, where I grab some data from a dashboard and then I do some basic math and then I convince myself that are we growing in the right way or not. All of that, turns into dashboards and like simple applications that I built for myself. I am not only because I love to do food the product, but also because I want to be very credible when I talk about it. So it has become really part of my daily life.
What's the last little Replit widget that you built?
We are going through like a very exciting period of growth right now. And we've been changing so many things under the hood. We try to make our agent much cheaper. For example, I really care about making a product that is affordable for as many people as possible. So like I have some dashboards that help me track the cost difference between the previous version of the agent and the new one, and tracking the sentiment of our users on the product. I'm always tweaking, this kind of metrics and this kind of data dashboards for my own usage. And I check them several times a day. That's probably the most exciting thing of launching agents in production today is you sort of put a team of software engineers in the hands of everyone, and they are tirelessly working all the time. And you as a builder, you have a vantage point to basically interview them and understand, okay, how is my agent behaving today? Do people like it? Do people dislike it? What do they like? Is it being good enough? It's like a social experiment almost.
Just on your email, how are you managing that? Like, is it piped straight into an agent who is triaging it for you, maybe doing some automatic replies? Or is it more like you'll read a thing, you'll call up your AI assistant to help you with a bit of drafting?
First of all, let me apologize in public if I've been late to reply to emails from across the world, because I realize especially that the last few months have been really, really something for me. I pipe my entire professional email into an LLM twice a day, and then I try at least to surface things that I should have replied immediately and that I forgot, and then I give myself some basically executive summaries of the day, to understand what has been happening, what are some of the top priorities. I don't think I mastered that process yet, but I can feel literally how fast models are improving by how much more I rely on them. Like 6 months ago, I would have built this. I already built this as a gimmick. It just gave me an idea. Okay, at the end of the day, I knew what I went through. Let me see what is the recap. Is it close enough? And now it's almost starting to swallow the priorities, where I more and more rely on what AI tells me about my inbox rather than the other way around. By the time we're going through this podcast, probably my Gmail already went down one entire page. And so thanks to LLMs, I can still manage to make that work.
You actually let your team use competing AI tools, even though you're building one. What have you learned from watching them do that? And is there going to be a time where you're like, nope, just use Replit? Or are you always going to look for the best tool to work internally?
I would love to say that I will always be unbiased and I will always provision the best tool. And I believe that's exactly what I'm doing right now. So we have access to all the main chatbots, any kind of coding agent that one engineer wants, we provision that. Definitely, the usual suspects are there in the picture. So the Cursor, Cloud Code, Codex of the world, everyone can use whatever they prefer right now. I am way more opinionated when it comes to using tools that are similar to Replit. In that case, I sort of mandate as dog food in the product.
Yeah.
I had to be honest with you though. At this point, especially we're hiring a lot of people in the last few months. I don't even have to ask to dog food it. I think there is enough excitement internally and maybe peer pressure. You walk around, half of the screens are all the time on Replit. Even a newcomer just realizes, okay, I should be using exactly the same product, to build this or to build that. So the amount of the fooding has been growing exponentially because of that.
Wow.
But yeah,
it's a sign of a good product when everyone just gravitates towards it.
Yeah. It has become useful enough also for everyone internally, which I think it was my personal milestone to accomplish in 2025.
Aside from, the coding tools and everything else we've talked about, what are some of the favorite ways that AI is being deployed inside your own company?
I think it's in terms of the internal tools that we create for ourselves. I'm gonna give just one example. We have a people portal, like I think back in the days people call like the intranet portal of a company
Yeah.
where you have access to the
Intranet's the thing no one ever wanted to go to.
exactly. I'm really speaking my age now. Usually, it's used to see the org chart, and you can find the desk and the seating map, and all the different benefits and services that the company has. That type of portal tends to bloat very quickly because the moment you make it based on a CMS, everyone starts to add documents and content, and they make it basically a single source of truth, but it becomes overwhelming. So no one ends up browsing it anymore because there is too much to read. The very simple fact that we started to add chat interfaces and agent workflows to that internal tool that we built ourselves shows me that everyone is using it and engaging with it more and more. Like you can book meeting rooms with that. You can send gifts to other employees. We keep adding basically ideas and services on a daily basis, and a lot of these features that we add to this internal portal that we built ourselves, they are powered by AI. I don't think there is anything like that on the market. And also because it's really tailored to who we are as a company. It really looks like how we are, it matches our cultural values. And that's the world that I hope we're going to be seeing more and more, where every company will be running a lot of tools that they build themselves because they really reflect who they are rather than going out and buying some massive SaaS that has been optimized for no one.
That's the vision that a lot of people are touting at the moment. Build your own custom software, you don't need to buy it from anyone. What's the reality of that in 5 years when someone vibe coded something for the HR team or the accounting team? It's now built up hundreds, maybe thousands of users. There's a ton of data now in there. The experience has changed. There's parts that you haven't checked out in a while, but that people still use. Like you've accrued a massive amount of debt. Is that viable?
I think the big SaaS companies, their value is not the software they created. Is having the system of records, is knowing exactly how to sell to big enterprises, is understanding the company processes. That's where the real value exists. So the Salesforce of the world, the Monday.com, they're not going to go away anytime soon. They're going to change. They're going to have to evolve because of what's happening with AI, but they still retain a strong moat because of the position that they have today in the market. Conversely, I think there is a very long tail of software vendors and small SaaS solutions that they're going to be disrupted, and some of them are being disrupted as we speak by vibe coding. And I think the key reason why is what I was explaining before with the internal tools we are building for ourselves. The fact that when you're capable of personalizing those internal tools that you need for your company, a lot of people want to do that. They were looking forward for that moment to happen. As a matter of fact, there are a lot of engineering teams within large companies that build exclusively internal tools. So maybe you have been a Google like me. The entire company runs on bespoke software. They practically don't buy almost anything except a few very famous SaaS solutions.
Mm.
Now the same can happen with mid-market and smaller companies, and I think that's what makes everything more exciting to me because we can make any business more productive. We can also make their life easier because if you put me in front of a very advanced SaaS myself, I get lost. Like I'm not a salesperson. If you put me in front of Salesforce or HubSpot, I'm not gonna know what to do. But if you put me in front of some of the internal tools we built at Replit, I understand exactly what's going on. Is the jargon that we use internally? They only have the few features that they need. So, and there are a lot of people that are putting effort to maintaining them and evolving them correctly.
You seeing any patterns emerge? So I'm a HR person. I have this particular need for managing the people inside the organization. I create a little vibe coded tool to help me. People start using it. It grows, more data comes in. Who's maintaining that? Who's thinking about extra flows to add on? Presumably that HR person doesn't have the time to like look at their users and make the product work better for them. So who ends up then holding on to that little piece of software that some random person has created?
So I made an experiment basically last year. I put out a job description for a role that I call AI Chief of Staff. And since I've done that, it pretty much went viral, and a lot of other companies in the Bay Area started to use that. What I mean by the role is someone who acts partially as a chief of staff, so they're capable of being in touch with everyone at the company. They can mingle with every team, but they also have strong AI builder skills. So the prototype is great vibe coder, doesn't have to come from a software engineering background, but knows how a company runs broadly and knows exactly what each team needs.
Yeah.
I started a team with one person. Now it has become a team of two. And today, I think we just crossed 200 people in total at the company. They probably carry the load of 80% of the maintenance of all the internal tools that we ever built. And the fact that agents help you to move so fast means that the two of them can do pretty much everything on their own. You would argue, why do you need to hire separate people just to do that if your agent was so easy to use? The truth is, not even there is no barrier of entry to start to create tools, as you were saying. The maintenance work, of course, takes a bit more skills and dedication, but it's also a matter of time. Like if I have someone who, say, has talent, I don't want them to spend 10 hours a week improving and maintaining their tool. I want them to get on calls and attract the best possible talent. So once they showed us the prototype that I have in mind and it starts to get some traction, then I pass it over to my group of AI builders, and then they keep improving it and maintaining it over time. I feel that's a formula that's going to be working for a lot of companies of our size and bigger.
We got a bit of a peek into the job description that you just mentioned, AI chief of staff. But in an AI native company, what are the skills that make people successful? Is it technical experience, or you mentioned taste and judgment before, or is it something else?
I would say it's a combination of agency and taste. So you need to have great energy, great willingness to get things done. Ask for forgiveness, not for permission. I think it's a mantra that works very well, especially in startups.
Yeah.
But at the same time, don't just create AI slop. And by AI slop, I don't just mean software, like just don't rush the things that you're building just because you can get an initial prototype because of AI. Like the human taste, the understanding of what to build, how to build it, at which time it should be done, that should still come from the person who's running the process. But everyone who combines those two traits at the same time, they're not only being very successful, but also I think their career trajectory is going to look completely different to what I think the two of us have experienced. I have guys who are just fresh out of school and been around for 1 or 2 years. I wish I was a fraction of their productivity when I was their age. So that's probably where I see most of the productivity boost is when I compare myself today to some of the younger people that were onboarding, and I'm really envious, like in a good way, But I realize, oh my god, like the world has really changed in the meantime.
You've mentioned taste a couple of times now. How do people develop taste? Often, if they're not building things intimately, how do they get a feel for what is great and maybe how they should dictate to an agent where it should go to develop something correct?
I would say there is one very important trait that determines everyone's career, no matter the level at which they work, which is openness to receive feedback and know how to internalize it and know how not to take it in a defensive way, but rather as a way to grow yourself. Taste, when you're just starting and you have the means to create things, but you still don't have it fully fleshed out, is going to come from the people that are mentoring you. And you need to be proactive to perhaps even bring early prototype versions in front of whoever is working with you. Our colleague that has been in the trenches much longer than you, your manager, your VP, your exec, whoever is available, as long as they give you like very direct feedback of what they like and dislike, just don't give up. That is the right opportunity for you to move faster and grow that taste. And I think that's also what's the most exciting about the careers for younger folks, because now again their feedback cycle is not going to be anymore once a quarter for them to accomplish a project. They can get feedback like every week or so. So even better opportunity for them to grow the ranks as soon as possible.
That is great advice. You've said your goal is to maximize the irreducible amount of work, the stuff that only humans can do. What do you think that irreducible core is for someone in a very creative role?
Yeah, let's think about it this way. Let's think of the analogy of how you build a house. There are some like basic components. You lay the foundations. You bring up the walls. You bring the roof. All of these are sort of like irreducible amounts of work, and it's a very specific task that you know exactly how to go from point A to point B. But the combination of everything that you put together makes the difference between building a shack versus building a mansion. So it's very similar with an agent. What I try to accomplish with our product is to make sure that if you write a prompt and you want to accomplish a specific task, I will do my best not to put in front of any technical choice. So you're building a roof, we are gonna make sure that it doesn't fall. You are painting a wall, we're gonna make sure that it's dry on time. So the technical minutia should not be impacting the user, but the choices of what to do, the order in which to do them, the amount of time you spend in doing every single detail, that is still part of the human taste and exactly what they want to build. So I think I always encourage even engineers in front of edges not to think of themselves anymore as people that take care of every single technical detail, but rather to grow their product muscle more and more. No matter what you're building, you always want to try to think about the entire architecture. You want to try to think about exactly what's going to be going in front of the user. And that is the part where you're going to be able to deliver more and more value over time. Um, so I would say the ideal agent user today is not necessarily a software engineer, especially an agent like Replit, is rather a project manager, someone who has an idea exactly what should be built in all the different components, and then is able to manage and orchestrate a lot of different agents in order, to get the entire thing done.
We've talked about, people having taste and crucially picking the direction that they send any AI agents or AI work off in. But increasingly, lots of creative work is also being done by the AI. Do you think AI is inherently creative? I mean, it's a giant statistical machine, right? It produces the average of averages. How are we going to push forward creativity in an AI world, or do we enter these loops of kind of all the same work happening because we're all prompting the same thing?
I think it's a new type of creativity. For example, I was, hanging out in the Mid Journey community early on, and now I don't have much time anymore, but I've seen it growing, and I've seen how creatives there were using, the early versions of those models. The exciting thing was that we learn how to become creative through prompting, which is a completely new skill. But I will never dare to say that what I saw there, and I still see, created by image generation model from people that know how to use them well. Those works are extremely creative. Yes, there are averages of averages, but I would argue that art has been like that for centuries as well. We all took inspiration from what has been done in the past. You inspire yourself, then you remix it, you combine things together, and then you create a new artistic language. The same is happening with AI. I think the view that whatever an image generation model or like any other type of creative AI is creating is purely, statistics, is not as exciting as what I see myself, on a daily basis. And I hope that more and more artists will embrace this change. And by the way, I respect their concerns. I know that a lot of their hard work has gone into training models, and I don't think overall as an industry we've done an amazing good job at protecting their professions. But putting that important topic aside, the output of Gen AI models can still be extremely creative as long as they're in the hands of someone who has creative skills.
I want to make sure we touch on a provocative idea you have for the future, which is the one person unicorn, which is kind of a dream you can extrapolate from all these amazing tools that allow you to cross boundaries and get an amazing amount of work done. But what does a one person unicorn actually look like? What does that person do all day? Are they building, directing, editing? Are they negotiating with agents? What does it mean?
Think of a world where most of the tasks will be able to be accomplished by an agent, hand to hand. In a sense, we're kind of getting a glimpse of it because of OpenClaw. As much as it's very controversial as a piece of technology, has a lot of security issues. A lot of folks are really embracing it and just launching agents and waiting for them, to bring back what they need. take that the status quo from today, extrapolate a few years from now. Not only something like Replit Agent 4 already now allows you to build all the basic assets you need in order to start a company, but you can also think of agents in the future allowing you to you know figure out your legal concerns and creating your entity and contacting investors and doing everything that you need in order to run a company correctly. So I don't think that future is completely realistic. Of course, it's not something that's going to happen immediately. I do know that some other folks are talking about the first $1 billion single person company happening this year. I'm a bit more skeptical about that, probably because I have my hands in this technology on a daily basis. So I tend to be a bit more pragmatic on where we are today. But on the flip side, I see a lot of businesses today built on Rapid by very small teams, some of them even one person, that are generating very good amounts of revenue, like life-changing amount of revenue for all those folks. So I would be a fool if I didn't extract the trend that AI had in the last 10 years and carry it forward, to the next 10 ones.
Where does the value creation sit though there? Because you're also talking about this world where anyone can create software. I can create an internal tool at the snap of my fingers. What is a unicorn creating with one person that they can then sell for $1 billion in revenue that I can't just vibe code? And do we enter this world where there almost is no value creation because everyone can just create it on the fly themselves?
I think the value creation is the idea, the execution, the grit, the fact that like any company building experience, you will go through ups and downs, and you will have competitions, and you will have days when you're gonna be questioning yourself. So maybe going back to the Top Gun discussion we had at the very beginning, if you remember the movie, Maverick goes through periods where he feels he's the king of the world, and then he goes to periods where he thinks he's about to give up. This happens, I think, to everyone in life. No matter how successful you're being, no matter how skilled you are, we are humans. So there is a very important human aspect in creating a successful company. It's not just about creating software. And I'm sure the same story applies, to you at Canva. You had that idea long ago. You executed well. The value, I will argue, right now is not in the software you created. It is in the community, is in the fact that you created a brand new user experience that no one else has replicated in the world. That's where the real value is.
That is a great point to leave it on, I think, for the future of AI and the promise that we can have a one-person unicorn very soon. I would love to change gears a bit and ask you about your all-star creative team. So your all-star creative team is any 4 people that you would love to work with, put together. They can be any person, dead or alive, someone from 500 years ago, someone from 200 years in the future. I would love to know who you would pick to be on your team.
That's a great question. So let's start from, I would say, Rich Sutton is a AI researcher and professor that I have a very high opinion of, and he really evangelized this concept of the bitter lesson, the idea that as long as you have more training compute and more data, no matter how ingenious you get in the type of AI model you're trying to train, they're just going to get better. And I think he gave us hope as a field long ago that the moment we were able to scale compute and the moment we found an architecture as powerful as transformers, we would have created the revolution that we're experiencing today.
Is that like a corollary of Moore's law, but for AI models?
Absolutely, you're spot on, and I think we are riding that wave since then, and as you can feel, it's not stopping anytime soon. So, very bullish about the future AI products we're going to be able to build.
Great choice for your team. Who's next?
Let's go with John Ive, former Apple, currently I think OpenAI, and a few other amazing projects, including designing a Ferrari car. And as you know, I'm Italian, so that's another point of pride. But we've been talking a lot about taste, and I would say is the person, the designer that brought a lot of taste to the world of computing, both in the physical world as well as in the space of bits. And we talk about how important taste is going to be in the future because of AI. So definitely the person that I would have loved to work with and learn from, because I feel that's one of the skills that I want to grow more in the future.
I'd probably say there's no person on the planet who has better taste than Johnny Ive. So great pick. Who's next?
Let's go with Douglas Engelbart, probably a slightly less known name, a pioneer of editing computer science. I think, if I recall correctly, in 1968, he gave this demo at Stanford called the Motherable Demos. And he basically showed how computers look like and function today, which is mind-blowing for me to think because it was literally like 6 decades ago. I would love to believe that what we're creating now at Replit and one we launched in the last couple of years has been the new motherboard demos for what can be done with AI and compute. So I'm really inspired by how futuristic his view was long ago. And I hope, that will be driven by the same kind of futuristic good taste for us to build Replit in the next decades.
Well, that is a great creative team. Some great choices in there. I think we've had a bit of time now. Nella might be ready, our designer in residence. She has probably taken your sketch and turned it into who knows what. But Nella, are you there?
Hello, yes, I am here.
Have you had time to turn Michele's artistic sketch into something slightly more artistic?
Yes, I did. I created this short animation inspired by his childhood story of watching Top Gun on TV. So let me just share my screen.
Okay, I'm seeing little Michele in front of the TV. I love it, Nella. You
Wow,
captured
this is super
everything.
cool.
Even the bomber jacket at the end as Michele was
Exactly.
walking through the
Right.
airport.
I feel like Michele could star in the next Top Gun Maverick series.
And
Who knows?
you nailed those 80s synths that were just so much in Top Gun.
Yeah, even the apartment look like very much where I live. So amazing work. Thank you.
Well, thanks, guys.
Well done. I cannot believe that little sketch of aviator glasses turned into that. Thank you, Nella. All right, Michele, we have rapidly run out of time. I think it was an amazing conversation, but I would love to fire some rapid fire questions at you. Are you ready?
Just do it.
Let's go. What are you reading at the moment?
The Creative Act by Rick Rubin.
Great choice. What's one prompt you overuse?
I constantly ask if I could write something in a more concise way.
Okay. You invest in AI startups. So what instantly gets your attention?
I want to see at least one of the co-founders to have expertise in one domain that is not AI. That's what gets me excited.
Great. Favorite underrated AI tool?
I will have to say Replit here. We just started, so we're underrated by definition,
Okay, you're back at Stanford. What's one idea that you got right too early?
I started to work on AI applied to source code when the models were not nearly as powerful as they should have been. It was too early, but I kept doing it and it paid off. So
Tenacity wins.
exactly.
You and AI are making an album together. What's the genre?
I'm a big metalhead, so it will have to be metal.
All right. And finish this sentence. A surprising thing AI taught me about myself is...
Every time I have a pain in my body or an exercise that I cannot do, I ask AI. I sometimes even shows videos of what I'm doing, and it finds everything I do wrong and fixes me better than a doctor. So strongly recommended.
Wow. Hot tip. And that's it. That is all we have time for. Thank you so much for going deep on vibe coding and agents and creativity, Michele. It has been an absolute pleasure to chat with you.
Thank you, Cam. This was a ton of fun. Thank you.
And thank you, listeners, for joining us on this episode of Prompted, a podcast about AI, people, and the creative spark. To keep up with future episodes, please subscribe wherever you love to listen to podcasts or head on over to YouTube. And if you're enjoying the show, please leave us a rating or a review. We read every single one, and we always love hearing your thoughts. Until next time, keep chasing that creative spark.